Okay, sounds good.
So, hi everyone. Thanks for coming to our monthly Cascadia Composers Monday night presentation. This week we have Adam Eason presenting, and he's a freelance composer and performer. And he's going to talk about some piano work for piano that he's put together. So take it away, Adam.
Hello, thanks for having me. Uh, I am a composer, but I'm also a teacher. I teach cello mostly. But one of my big interests is making sure there's plenty of new music for students to engage with in ways that are, stimulating to listen to and are interesting to play technically and have interesting challenges for the student as well. The set of piano pieces that I'm going to present today are part of that kind of exploration of trying to compose student works that go beyond just being like etudes or sort of here's this technique that we want the student to learn, and they're going to kind of have it presented in a musical context. So I was aiming to have each piece be at about somewhere between a vaguely intermediate to advanced level. They're not easy pieces, but they're also not at like a level that requires high virtuosity most of the time. So I would say I was aiming these pieces to land right at about the stepping stone where you have students who are becoming more serious about engaging with more complex and virtuosic music. There are a total of 9 pieces. I don't think we'll have time to get through all of them. But I was just going to present a few that I particularly enjoyed and speak a little bit about how I was approaching the composition and what I was kind of thinking about for the student and musically and I guess theoretically as well. So I'm gonna turn on this share screen here. And we're gonna hop in and we should be able to see that okay. I'm gonna move some things around for myself as well. All right. The first composition we'll look at is this one, A Rocky Shore. This one I actually composed not too long after, I always get this turned around in my head, Oregon Bach Festival Composers Symposium. Just the most ungainly title for a symposium, I think. But this is down in Eugene. And one of the events that they had at this symposium was the opportunity to either compose for or at least participate in a gamelan orchestra. I was mostly only listening. I was also there as a performer, so I kind of had a lot of stuff on my plate to begin with. But I was pretty struck by the sound, and the scales kind of stuck in my ears. I have no idea. I'm not like super well versed in gamelan music, so this was more trying to play with kind of the soundscape that I heard and creating this composition. So it starts with kind of these long flowing lines, this melody, kind of almost endless melody kind of feeling that's going along. for the opening A section. Has a more sprightly staccato B section with lots of pops, big changes in register for the student to kind of challenge themselves to jump from one side of the keyboard to the other, um, before eventually winding back to that opening A section material, again, the kind of long meandering lines. So with that in mind, I'm going to make sure the audio settings on my side are good. And we will give this a listen. Go. Um, so a couple of other challenges in this piece that I wanted to present to the student is kind of a variety of different scales from this sort of not not your usual pentatonic scale. It's a sort of modified version of the major pentatonic scale, to exploring the whole tone scale in the middle section. Um, the middle section is also kind of pulling on what I've seen from like Bartok's Microcosmos. He has a lot of contrary motion pieces to sort of have the hands kind of mirror each other. So that's kind of where this all comes from. There's also some interesting little hand shifts, hand thumb tucks that the student has to navigate in order to get these final high notes, getting a sort of third voice coming in from this last section. Moving on to the next one. The scherzo here, one of the big composers for kind of piano pedagogy is Dmitri Kabalevsky. He pops up quite a lot. And I don't know, I like his music, so I wanted to sort of try my hand at imitating Kabalevsky's style, which is, I guess I would call it like triadic plus. There's a little bit of spice to how Kabalevsky uses his triadic chords. So more emphasis on the sevenths and kind of extended harmonies. It's also got more of a modal quality to the melody and the harmony, that kind of general scheme. It's a little bit more from the Dorian mode. So one of the big things when I'm composing music for students is to try and push them into or away from just here's more major and minor, here's more major and minor. You've got these major and minor scales all over the place, but there's plenty more to explore from there. So I'm trying to think what else I would say about it. Again, it's following kind of an ABA format. I've tended to keep these forms fairly simple and focus less on here's this complicated thing with things changing all the time, and making it more like well, you learned part A, when part B or when part A returns, there might be some little changes to it, but you've basically kind of got the idea. So a kind of quick herky-jerky kind of waltz at the beginning, sort of more introspective middle section, moving away from the kind of D Dorian feel, and then kind of pushing the student to work with tempos, you know, changing from the faster tempo to the slower tempo and then coming back. There's also a little bit, these little triplets are pretty quick, but as far, I ran it by a pianist friend of mine, and she said they're tricky, but they fall under the hand pretty well, which is exactly what I like to hear when I'm composing music for students. So again, I'll have to adjust these audio settings a little bit, and we can get into our little scherzo. skipped on ahead right to the next one. Okay. I think I might have to modify um, the tempos that I have written. The pianist that I worked with played it maybe more at like a um, dotted half equals 60-ish, and it still sounded great. So yes, and I think when she shared her playing this with her mom and had her attempt to guess who composed that, her mom guessed Kabalevsky. So great, I got it in one. Um, excellent. I think I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit here to our uh, rolling hills. This one I wrote not long after working with Dr. Lisa Neer. Um, I, for a time, was trying to upload to YouTube video analyses of compositions. So looking at them not from the lens of like a music theorist, but from the lens of a composer. How did the composer try and put these things together? Um, it's a kind of not the same mindset quite. And she was playing around in the piece of hers I looked at. She was playing around with a lot of quartal harmony, so chords stacked in fourths and fifths. And I thought, that's a pretty nice sound for students to try and engage with. It's kind of, again, moving them away from here, these stacked thirds, minor and major qualities that you spend so much time learning at the beginning and getting them into these kind of different soundscapes that can be built from, um, different interval stacks. Um, Again, there's another focus on thinking more modally. This is a little bit ambiguous until the end where it finally kind of settles into an F Mixolydian kind of pointing in that direction. Um, but it takes a while for it to sort of settle into that. Um, the form itself is more of an ABA kind of thing. So the sort of gentle rolling accompaniment with the melody, alternating, again, looking at contrasting sort of textures. So flowing and staccato, and really trying to get the student to alternate between these different articulation techniques. And it just kind of alternates between those two, and then a little coda at the end, which sort of somewhat recalls the beginning. So let's do this. It should be there. Okay. So maybe a little bit of Stravinsky popping out in these middle sections. There's also an extra little challenge to the student with these, um, I guess it's a metric modulation, a very simple one, where the beat is staying the same, but the kind of subdivision is changing. Um, so really challenging the student. How is your internal pulse? How is your subdivision, and how are you counting? How solid is that working for you? And then little sections like these here. Um, I don't know. You always got to sneak in some scales from time to time to make sure they're practicing those, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really need to say about that one. No, not really. Um, Moving on to a couple of the uh, more difficult ones in a couple of different ways. So this is these come as a pair. Um, for these two compositions, the focus is moving really far away from uh, building music from scales and kind of the chords that are derived from them, and getting much more into thinking intervallically. Um, so in our troll, there's a lot of emphasis on fifths and tritones, um, building things in thirds, but in a more loose and free form kind of way. So I don't know that it's quite entering the territory of like composing with sets, but it's getting pretty close. Um, so taking these motives and using them in a more chromatic fashion, um, and in a way that's kind of pushing away from this is clearly like a tonal kind of thing. Um, I was also drawing greatly on Mussorgsky when writing the Troll in particular, although when we get to the fairy, I think you'll hear Mussorgsky in that one as well. Um, and you know, his pictures at an exhibition, thinking of like Baba Yaga, especially kind of drawing on that sort of kind of menacing quality. Um, it's also much more free form. There's not a lot of formal repetition uh, in this composition, even ending with a little cadenza. So this one, both in terms of the theory it's drawing from, how it's constructed, and kind of the technical, really pushing the technical boundaries. This one's really getting to students who are like, you know, getting more into 20th century music. So they're getting in a pretty advanced stage of their learning, I would expect. Um, so I'll play Troll first and then stop it and talk about the fairy on its own when we get there. and a nice little cute 5-1 at the end to remind them of home. Um,
Adam, can I ask just a quick question? I can't
yeah, of
read
course.
measure 9. What is that word? There's a
Ah,
couple. Shrill. Shrill.
Trill. Yes.
Okay, shrill. Okay. All right. And then there was another one. 14.
14 here. Slinking and sly.
See, oh, okay, cool. All right. I like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I think it's good to um, give more, excuse me, more evocative musical expression instructions. I mean, I know there's a lot of Italian vocab that we have to teach as part of learning these instruments and how to read music, but I don't know. I think just having things that are really clearly, uh, emotionally evocative can be really useful stepping stone for students, especially when you're getting into things which are like this one, kind of getting way farther away from the kind of more common. Like you start getting used to how music feels, and this one's supposed to be happy, and this one's supposed to be sad, and this one's supposed to be whatever. Um, so just having a little extra nudge to help them know, okay, this is how this is going to be approached. I'm not familiar with the harmonic language, maybe, but you can, as a composer, you can help stepping stone the student into what you're aiming for. Um, but the fairy, which comes as a pair with the troll, this one kind of comes back to more triadic material, but now I'm introducing the kind of conundrum of polychords. And so there's a lot of like B major in the left hand and F sharp major in the right hand. Um, and those kinds of more complex kind of triadic structures that will come up a lot more in 20th century and contemporary classical music. So there's, I think, enough familiarity, like if the student were to play one hand, they'd be like, okay, this sounds familiar to me. And then the student plays the other hand, that also sounds familiar. So they're kind of grounded in that um, sort of, they can draw on what they've already learned, and then they put it together and go, oh, suddenly it sounds like completely different when we add these things together. Um, at some point, you do need to introduce compound meters to, or complex meters to students. So there's a lot of meter changes, 3/8, 7/8, time kind of in the middle. Um, Also a lot of challenges for reading ledger lines, right? So very deep ledger lines for the troll, very high ledger lines for the fairy, and getting with a student, like, you're going to see music like this. So when you have a whole bunch of ledger lines all over the place, how are you going to approach learning this um, in a way where what's supposed to be happening? Um, it's fairly quick. Again, kind of a little bit of an off-kilter waltz kind of feel for our A section. Um, the rhythms that are being asked of the student are getting pretty complex in this one. So changing from like eighth notes to triplet quarter notes, having the 3/2 polyrhythm is relatively common. They are going to come across it quite a lot, but there's a lot of other stuff going on harmonically in this. So even, I think I talked about this in my last the last time I did a discussion for Cascadia composers, like an individual challenge plus another individual challenge combined isn't additive. It's not 1 + 1. It's 2 × 2, right? So the more sort of technical challenges that you add on to it, it actually ratchets up the complexity of learning the piece for the student pretty quickly. So again, I think this one would be much more geared towards students who are at a fairly advanced level, and just as a way to kind of present these different performance challenges and musical challenges in a more accessible way than, I'm trying to think off the top of my head who'd be using a lot of uh, like Messiaen or something. I don't know, right? Um, so kind of trying to draw on these more advanced theoretical concepts, but in a way that's still at least technically approachable for the student. So here we go. Here's our fairy. There we go. I'm reminded playing through this, there's also some additional little challenges for the left hand, developing finger independence, playing this little counter melody while you have the accompanimental part kind of in the thumb and pinky finger. So really separating the two halves of the hand for the left hand. This one, I'm not a pianist myself. I try to like play through the different sections as best I can. This one was pretty gnarly. So I'd be curious to see how piano teachers approach getting the students to play that little section. Good. So at the end of the set, this won't be the last one that I'll show today. It's just the end of the set. This one, I was actually looking backwards in time to composers like Czerny and Kulau. And I was kind of trying to think to myself what I could do in that sort of classical language that would still have just a little bit of something kind of more contemporary present at the same time. And I approached this as almost like an etude for like the pentatonic scale and for these chromatic approach tones. So oddly, even though it's, inspiration is classical and it sounds very classical, I was actually, kind of looking at a lot of like jazz theory videos and how jazz pianists approach like decorating chords and things like that. And I was like, I can bring some of that into our kind of more classical language. It's pretty sprightly, and kind of has these little I try to be very particular about my accents and articulations for the students. Like, I mean, it helps for musicians in general, but especially for students, like this is how they learn musicality, right? Is by having a lot of music where it's like, okay, here's these articulations and here are these, and then we start to mix them up and put them together, and you start to build a more complex and rich picture over time from those articulations and the accents. Um, Again, there's some rhythmic challenges that I wanted to lean into as well, looking at well, this is 4 against 6, but 2 against 3 polyrhythm. And you know, it wouldn't be a nod to Czerny without some scale runs, right? So um, yes, I think that pretty much covers what I was attempting to do with pirouettes. Yeah, just a nice callback to kind of classical piano pedagogy. Thank you. And with some extra dog accompaniment. I don't know if you heard in the background. Um, Again, on another listening, I'm reminded I was wanting to again challenge the Alberti bass, getting that fluidity that the students need for playing like Mozart or Haydn, Beethoven, those bigger compositions and composers. Um, so that is the pirouettes. For the last two that I'm going to play, I'm actually going to hop over to my YouTube because I am working on getting these recorded by a live musician, by getting live recordings of these. And the two waltzes that open, that are at the beginning of this collection, um, have been recorded by a local pianist, Adrienne Varner, and she did a wonderful job with them, I think. The first one I will look at will be let me make sure I can get this all open. Here we go. Okay. Will be the Sleepy Town Waltz. I don't think I'll be able to share both the score and the music at the same time, but well, let me see. I might be able to rig it up. Okay, so here's the score. And if I play from a different window, I'm not sure if you'll hear it. So I'm going to play it, and you can give a thumbs up if you can hear. Uh, Okay. Much simpler than a lot of the other ones. Um, the composition itself was there may be some a bit of a generational gap here. So there's uh, basically inspired by video game music uh, from the video games I grew up playing in the 90s. There's a composer in particular, Nobuo Uematsu, who um, is kind of, I guess, the most well-known composer of video game music from Japan. I guess now that I think about it, maybe the only known composer of game music. Most of them are kind of anonymous in the background. Um, but some of his music has a sort of very Tchaikovsky-esque feel to it, and so I was thinking of those uh, compositions in particular. Um, the music from the 90s was also had memory restraints, right? So you could only fit so much music onto the memory chip of the game. So there's a lot of um, kind of loops, like you have melody one, melody two, and then it loops through those melodies over and over and over again and drives your parents crazy, I'm sure, because they're not engaged with the music itself. Um, but the kind of lack of, I guess, variation across the composition was deliberate choice on my part, kind of recalling those old looped video game musics from that time period. Nowadays, memory is not a problem, so you have whole big compositions that they fit into it, and it's a kind of a different beast today. But um, and then the last one is just this nostalgic waltz, a very short little one. I don't have too much to say about it, actually. Um, this was this is reflective of like my level of piano playing. Um, most of it was improvised by myself uh, while I was kind of tinkering around with composing and getting melodies and things like that. Um, and this is one of the things that came out, and I was like, oh, this is actually, I think, very nice. Um, so I think I will write it down. And so I did. go. You know, I'm reminded as I play through these. I forget who said this, but I think there was a guitarist who said there are two kinds of musicians. There are musicians who uh, don't write any waltzes, and there are musicians who write hundreds. And it's looking like I'm getting into that second camp pretty quickly. Um, but that's basically it. There are, like I said, kind of 9 pieces in the collection, and I covered most of them. But I wanted to make sure to leave enough time for anybody to ask any questions they have or any comments they might have, and I would be glad to answer those.
It's very nice, Adam. A very nice mixture of styles and complexity. And I think for students, the simpler pieces are the most difficult for them because, especially with piano, they just
Mm,
really want to bang and just go all over the
mm,
place. But to really, these pieces are wonderful. The
mm.
all of them. And
Really, really get them to focus on
oh
like
yes,
making it
and I like
very
you.
musical.
I like your description, your descriptive, um, uh, what do you call it? The direction, like
Mm,
you,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
cool.
very nice indeed.
Glad to hear that.
I like not extreme. What's the word I want? Well, just the harmonic excursions where you kind of go off into space from time to time, and you have a really nice way with that,
Yeah,
especially in the I think the troll and the fairy.
Mm, yeah.
I especially appreciated that way. I was actually thinking of a different Mussorgsky in response to that troll, but yeah, I can definitely hear the evocation there.
Oh yeah, maybe the ox in the cart
Actually,
more than Baba Yaga or
the two Polish Jews, rich and poor.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I can hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Which may be the first bi. You were talking about. You didn't call it bitonality. You called it something
Mm.
else. But
Polychords.
maybe that particular Mussorgsky may be the first bitonal piece ever written. I don't know.
Mm,
It's certainly pretty early.
yeah.
But yeah, I love excursions into complex harmony,
Yeah.
which are still um, which a person can still follow, and which still have sonic pleasures involved. I mean, there could be a great deal of dissonance, but
Yeah.
it's I don't know, for some reason my adjectives are escaping me tonight, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Um,
And I'm sorry I came in late. I'll have to catch up with the first 20 minutes when it gets posted
that's,
to
that's all good.
YouTube. So I take it these were all student pieces, and the
Yes.
initial ones that we heard were MIDI realizations.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But with the help
Slowly
of
over.
Sibelius, various
Exactly.
Sibelius tools. Yeah.
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 Slowly over time, they are getting recorded. Adrian is going to record a couple more in the next month or two. And I'm just going to have to try and draw on. I'd like to draw on as many pianists as I can because I like hearing how different people approach um, kind of the compositions and bringing them to life in their own ways. But it's also an expensive process, so
Yeah. Yeah.
making sure they're paid appropriately.
Right, right. And studio, are you recording them, or are you working with a studio, or?
Adrian recorded them at home.
Oh, I see.
Um,
Okay, well
yeah,
yeah. So you don't
so
have the
that's
studio time in addition.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, you
Um,
want to pay them for their time for sure.
right.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Okay,
yeah.
well,
So
good luck with that.
yeah, thank you. And I guess wrapping up, uh, the music is available at least as in PDF form. I'm gonna do my little plug. I'll put it into chat. Um, I have a store on my website, adameasonmusic.com, and it's listed under the compositions tab, compositions by Adam under piano music, and you can buy the PDF through there.
Mhm.
I'll figure out how to get it like an actual physical bound copy done. I have a couple ideas, but we'll see. Uh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to just comment on the section where you had said that you were having trouble playing it yourself with the left hand.
hmm.
I tell my students, look, you're a pianist. You just have to do this. You have to do everything, anything. You would not believe the stuff that's shown us. You just have to do this. When I was a girl, and I was just telling some new students that I've had, when I was a girl, one of the things I loved to do was to play those passages and just really concentrate on the finger that I had to lift up and bring down, and with the ones that I had to make legato and cross over, and I just loved that for some
Yeah,
reason, just tying
little
up the
puzzles.
knots or
Yeah,
whatever. And I just say, you got to do it. That's all there's to it. You
yeah,
have to play legato thirds. That's
yeah.
it. You just have to. So
Fair
they
enough.
learn how to do it.
Awesome. Well, that's about all I have for tonight. Thanks for having me again, and
Thank
It was
you
really
thanks
very
for
sweet. Yeah,
much. Yeah,
enjoyed
that's
it.
very
appreciate
nice.
Thank you
appreciate
very
the
much.
opportunity. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That was wonderful.
Awesome.
All
Okay.
right. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, good
Goodbye,
night.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.